Today we're talking about Today we're going to be talking about the power of mentorship and entrepreneurship. And at Volunteer MBC, we really believe in how individuals can make a difference in their community by stepping up, taking opportunities, and making the most of them. And so, this topic is something that we're really hold dear to our hearts, and also, we have some great mentors to give us some input. So we'll give you a little rough idea of what we're going to have happen in this presentation. We're going to start with the land acknowledgement and give you some background. And then we're going to do a bit of a warm up. And then from the warm up, we're going to go into about Volunteer MBC, get an idea of that, about who we are. And then we'll look at some current volunteer opportunities. We'll do a couple activities over the course of the day. And then we're going to get the perspectives from their mentors where you get a chance to ask some questions. And we'll talk a little bit about some great learning opportunities and next steps. So I'll start with the land acknowledgement. So we'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we work, that we know as Peel, is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples inhabited and cared for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe-Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis. Most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of Mississaugas of the Credit. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our deepest respect to its first inhabitants. It's very important for everyone who comes here as a settler on this land to get an understanding around what exactly is this land and the history of this land. There's a great website, native-land.ca, where you can get some idea about what the unceded territories actually are. And then, of course, you can visit the Mississaugas of the Credit website, mncfn.ca. So encourage everyone to do that. So a little bit about where this all started. So WCG Employment Ontario, Guzzle is representing them today here, and Volunteer MBC, we've collaborated, and most recently we've tried to deepen this collaboration by running a virtual volunteer expo around skilled volunteering. And in the case of all the volunteers that connect with Volunteer MBC, there's a great need for more and more skills to be present and showcased in volunteer opportunities. And at the same time, we know that it can be a really important step to get involved with volunteering on your way to search for or establish meaningful employment for yourself. So we know that partnering with Employment Ontario is very important for us, because we feel that we're able to get some insights from people who are right there on the front line looking for that meaningful position or looking for some career advancement, and see how we can help them through volunteering, as using that as an avenue. And if you are interested to review the Volunteer Expo that we did, we're going to be hopefully doing more of them in the future, but you can go and see the first one at bit.ly/volx2021. Or I also encourage you to check out a podcast we recently did in tandem with the WCG Employment Ontario and the Sheridan Continuing and Professional Studies. And so that's also, the link is on screen at Peel Matters podcast, June 17. So definitely a meaningful partnership, and we're hoping to grow it. And your participation today is very instrumental in us being able to further advance and deepen this understanding between what is the link that exists between the opportunities that come from volunteering vis-a-vis employment opportunities. So today we're going to learn a little bit about Volunteer MBC and how volunteerism can improve your career and life. We'll hear some insights from the mentors, as mentioned, about the entrepreneurship, and then gain insights and tips on your journey in becoming an entrepreneur. We'll talk about the Board Essentials course, and then you'll get a chance to network and ask questions. So as a bit of a warm-up activity, feel free to either unmute yourself and comment on this question, or add something in the chat. And the question is, what was your dream job? So especially if you look back into childhood and maybe you were asked, what do you want to be when you quote unquote grow up? Then this was, a very important question we were often asked. So what was your dream job? So I asked you that question, and take a moment to think about it, and put your answer in the chat. Maybe there's some unfulfilled things that we each wanted to do. Maybe there are things that we are doing, that maybe you're doing your dream job. Please feel free to share, and I'd like to be able to take a few of the comments from folks, or read them out, or if you wish, you can, as I said, you can unmute yourself now and chime in. Ghazal, you wanted to be a doctor?
Yes, I always wanted to be a doctor.
Any specific type of doctor?
Sorry?
Any particular type of doctor you wanted to be?
No, just GP.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually followed it. For my bachelor degree, I decided to study, it was not about doctor or anything, it was about hospital management. And then I realized that, no, this is not for me, working in hospitals with patients. So totally changed my idea.
You know what, that I think is a sometimes common experience. We think we want to be something, and then we don't realize there's a lot more involved in it than necessarily the part that we enjoy most. Exactly. I remember I was studying in the sciences, and I thought, yeah, I'm very interested in science. I love the topics and so forth, but I did not enjoy being in the lab and doing, experiments and waiting for results and not seeing the results and all of this. So when I didn't pursue that in my career, I still have an interest in science, but it's just an interest. Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to be a paleobiochemist. Matthew, that's paleobiochemist. That's like biochemistry, but like of like ancient or like something in like from fossils or something like that.
Yeah, I was 7 years old and knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was going to be the guy who determined skin colors. Finally, I was massive into dinosaurs.
Okay, yeah. I think the interest in dinosaurs in childhood, I've never lost that interest. Jurassic Park was my favorite book, and I think I didn't think about it as like, oh, I want to be a career in that, but I think it sounds still appealing. Looks like the idea of just drop everything and go and
dinosaurs in space. If anybody ever gave me an opportunity, I'd drop everything.
Yeah. But
just to add to the conversation that you were just having with Ghazal too, to just give a productive comment instead of just talking about my dinosaur fetish. I wanted to say, I think a lot of people don't understand the ripples in the pond of all the things they can do with some career paths as well. Writing was a good example for me. While I joke about being a dinosaur nerd, I absolutely was. I loved that. And when I was a kid, if people asked me what I dreamed about, that would be it. But I was carrying a notebook around since I was 10. I've written my entire life. I always knew I wanted to do something in writing. And part of my story is I didn't find the thing I wanted to do in writing until I was 27. Because you sometimes have these horse blinders on of this is what you can do with this skill. And you don't realize, Beatrice threw up here that she wanted to be a journalist. It wasn't until I was in journalism school that I realized all of the things I could do with a journalism degree. From speech writing to research to historic work to all across the map, getting into consulting, so many things. You can do an entire PR side with it. You can just do communications. You can do applied writing. So a lot of times people need to also research their dreams and find out all the options available to them. You may find something you don't even know exists.
That's true, and I think I'll chime in on that later if there's time with my own perspective on that point, because I think definitely there's a lot of truth in that, and people finding the careers that they've crafted of their own and basically merging a couple of different interests and passions that they have. So that's really great to hear. Tanya said she wanted to take care of people in some manner. I think that's so important, and working in the nonprofit sector, it's definitely something that I think traditionally for political reasons or gender inequality or different combinations of reasons, I think taking care of people, especially most vulnerable people in our society, is so important, and yet has been traditionally undervalued in terms of its economic compensation that exists for it. So for a lot of time, people want to do those types of things and aren't able to get the opportunity, or it's something that doesn't add up to pay their bills and things like that, and so forth. So through volunteerism, get an opportunity to do some of that. Beatrice says, I wanted to be a journalist. Okay, yeah, that I can relate to as well. Pravesh says, since childhood, I believe I have a creative mind, also inclined to technology, so I would like to create things, do 3D printing and prototyping. Oh, great. And the libraries definitely have 3D printers and courses for that, so looking forward to the reopening of that. And I think Rooks has said, that she was just mentioning that she's going to be sharing some of her story there. Great. Okay, thanks everybody for commenting on that. So we're Volunteer MBC. This is our motto, is all happens because you care. And we are a volunteer center. So our mission is to fuel purposeful connections between people to respond to the most pressing social issues in our community. We're a registered charity, and we've been active since 2008. We're serving Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon, which makes up Peel Region. If you're coming to us from outside of Peel Region, don't worry. I think the content here is going to be relevant to you anyway. And of course, we partner with other nearby volunteer centers, such as Volunteer Toronto, and other volunteer centers are join us as part of Ontario Volunteer Center Network and Volunteer Canada. And then we're a collective comprised of over 200 nonprofit organizations providing services in Peel. And then we're a service provider that mobilizes thousands of volunteers to the causes that need them. This is something that most people who know us for this. We're a capacity builder. So through volunteer management and learning services, we increase the capacity of other not-for-profit organizations. So their ability to be effective, they're being short on resources. Capacity building means, I don't know, a glass, how much can a particular glass hold, right? You can either increase the volume of the glass, or you can, make the liquid in it more dense. But, that's capacity building is kind of looking at resources and thinking, how can we increase our resources and how can we also make best use of the resources we have? So we try to help organizations do that through volunteer management and learning. And then we bring people together around shared values. We say we have stuff in common, we care about common things. Let's try to work together around that. And so we exist to improve lives through volunteerism. That means not just the lives of everyone who is connected to a service, but also of the volunteers themselves, because volunteering can be so beneficial. So we connect and contribute. We facilitate meaningful volunteer involvement. We ensure that people are getting connected to causes that need them, and that organizations are able to recruit and engage their volunteers effectively. We inform and inspire. So we promote and celebrate the power of volunteerism, raising awareness of community needs and assets, and recognizing excellence to thank volunteers and inspire others. We educate and enhance. So we strengthen organizational effectiveness and strategy. One of the main things that we do, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, is we train boards, board of directors that are run by volunteers, and we also train non-for-profit staff to be more effective and efficient. We also provide direct training for volunteers. And often, though, individual organizations will have their own specific volunteer training or onboarding or role-specific training. And we also seek to kind of create a more educated and more ready, volunteer-ready volunteer pool. So people get connected to organizations with already a little bit of an understanding of what is out there in the community, what's needed. And so then we bring organizations together to share resources and collaborate. And we have a great learning management system that we use to do that. Furthermore, we assemble and activate. So we're really focused on bringing people together to make positive difference. Often people in the community come up with an idea and they say, hey, I want to make a difference, or I have a suggestion for what we could do. And we say, well, you have a suggestion, you have a great idea, you have the passion to do it. So why shouldn't you be able to lead that initiative? And we can find a way to, build a team around you and bring other people around you who have common interests who are also trying to do similar things and identify that. We do that with all sorts of audiences, but especially including youth and seniors and newcomers. Everyone has something to contribute and everyone wants to make a difference. So it's just a matter of, how do we actually assemble and be organized to do it effectively? I often say to people, don't, you see upsetting things in the news or you're agitated about something, don't just get angry, get active, get involved in your community, and connecting to Volunteer MBC is a great way to do that. So during the pandemic, we've been doing a few things. We've been really focused on providing ways for organizations and essential services to collaborate and share resources, as mentioned. And then we're also working on further developing our emergency plans so that volunteers can quickly get to where they're most needed. This is something that has involved a lot of different pieces, but it's included things like having a volunteer-ready base of people who have taken some training or have been pre-screened and said, okay, I'm ready to volunteer whatever you need me. It also involves helping out organizations that might not have the ability to manage so many volunteers themselves. So instead, we manage some volunteers for them and simply direct them to their causes. And we provide training to protect volunteers and vulnerable populations and essential services, because during the pandemic, that safety part, super important as far as being able to make it effective for people to volunteer. And then last but not least, developing virtual volunteer roles to allow people to help out even while they're physically distant. So if you're thinking of volunteering or you felt that you were very closed in during the pandemic, that's become something where we really leaned into it. The rise of virtual volunteering has really increased over the course of the past year and a half, and there are a lot of virtual volunteer roles, and it looks like that will be here to stay. It's sort of part of our culture now. New normal is going to include much more comfort level with doing virtual programming, and there's going to be a need for that. So by all means, if you're interested in volunteering, you can do that from behind a computer. So ultimately, we are a two-sided platform. On one side, it's about inspiring the community to volunteer, and on the other side, it's enhancing the capacity of the organizations. So when we inspire people to volunteer, we do it so it enhances their skills and employability, their health and well-being, and their community belonging. And then on the flip side, with the organizations, we want to get them to have a better volunteer involvement going on at their organization and really strategize how we can partner so that they're working together on the things that really provide added value to each other. So this is a little bit blurry, so I apologize for that. But what is largely here is that our priority is to serve residents. So I was mentioning how volunteering for your skills and employability. So what this says here in the top area here is that it increases employability through volunteerism, avenues to develop skills and talent, avenues to demonstrate your skills, talents, and qualifications, and avenues to explore potential careers. So that's really what we're talking about here today. Really that focus on how can volunteering be essential and valuable for your employability and your journey toward meaningful employment. But at the same time, people are complex people, and we have other dimensions of ourselves. And so it's not enough to have the skills. You also need to be in a great state of mind. In that sense of you need to have your personal health and well-being in place. And, that's something that you want to reinforce and maximize as much as you can. So volunteering is a great way to do that. You can get opportunities to build your resilience and help, interact with people and increase your social emotional skills as well. And then to really feel like you belong in the community and get to know your community. So we foster a diversity and inclusion through volunteering, and then help people develop a sense of purpose. Okay, so ultimately, when you get into volunteering with us, you're able to explore different passions. We heard from so many of you just now about things that you wanted to do or things you're passionate about. So we have lots of different areas of interest where people can explore the opportunities that are there, both for the beneficiaries. So meaning like, oh, I'm interested in working with seniors, or I'm interested in working with a person who has an intellectual disability. Those are beneficiaries on the side of the services who can benefit from it. So that sometimes people think of it from that perspective. But even if you have specific skills or interests in terms of, oh, I'm very interested in animals or arts and crafts, or I'm interested in fashion, or I'm interested in finance. Organizations come to us with a variety of causes, a variety of purposes that they're trying to serve, and methods that they want to go about it. So connecting with us, you're able to do that. So the straightforward way to get connected to Volunteer MBC is come to our website, volunteermbc.org. And then you click on sign up, and you're able to search for volunteer opportunities and apply to positions in one click. I'll give you a quick synopsis of what that looks like. So from our main website, you can either go to the very top button at the top of the page. I recommend this. It says sign up. And you click that, and then you are invited to create your volunteer profile. It'll ask you to create a login, and then it will ask you to create, indicate your contact information and your availability and your interests. And you can also browse volunteer opportunities. Once you start browsing the volunteer opportunities, you see a listing something like this, and you can conduct your own searches on the left side. Once you've conducted a search, you've indicated what types of things you want to look for, or what types of timing you want to look for, you can conduct a search, and you get results. And similar to Google, you can just you get a bunch of in the listing, but better than Google, once you click on a position, you get a specific position description that's been created by that organization, and a straightforward apply now button that you can just click on. So because if you've had that volunteer profile, that by pressing apply now, you notify that organization that you're interested in applying to their position, and then they can come back and contact you. So, one of the organizations, so this is an example position from community living, but it'll tell you a little bit about the goal, the description of the position. And you can also search for keywords. And when you do a keyword search, you may find specific ones. So for example, here's a keyword search of mentorship, and it brings up a number of mentor-based positions as well, right? So those of you thinking, oh, I would love to be a mentor someday, that is also, an opportunity that is available in our system. Here are a few of those volunteer mentor positions that are currently active with Community Living, which is an organization that supports people who have an intellectual disability. They have some volunteer mentor positions as well. We've got Big Brothers Big Sisters of Peel, which has a very well-established mentoring program, including they're looking for mentors on their Black Community Advisory Council. They're looking for youth mentors there. So really, truly, great opportunities to get involved in that in your community through volunteering. Here are a few things people have said about volunteering. It said, Volunteer MBC made it possible for me to find the work opportunity in my own area of expertise. And then others have said, moving to a new country can be daunting. The good news is volunteering can be a great way to settle into a new community, meet people, learn valuable skills. Volunteering is a great opportunity to prove yourself, others, and the whole society. So if you're thinking, okay, I'm on my journey to become an entrepreneur myself, what will volunteerism do for you? Well, one, it gets you diverse opportunities, gets you a chance to see different things and learn a little bit more about what's possible. It lets you provide new perspectives and really expand your views, so you can really get a chance to think differently about things. A lot of the things that we think and feel are very much based on what level of experience we have with that. And if we don't have much experience, then our opinions or our perspectives are often colored by the media we're exposed to, or what we're told about how things are. But volunteering allows you to get a firsthand experience and really learn on the front line about what is going on in our community. Of course, opens the doors to develop new skills and passions, as I've discussed. It supplies valuable knowledge and experiences without the risks. So there's risk in everything. So I put a little asterisk there to say, there is always some risk involved in anything you do, but volunteering comes with a little bit of insulation in the sense that you have an opportunity to learn. It's a forgiving environment. You're able to try things out, and at the same time, you have a helping hand along the way from a volunteer supervisor or the organization itself to ensure that you're doing it in a safe and controlled fashion. you get to make important connections. And I think this might be one of the biggest things that a person can gain from volunteering, looking at community leaders, potential mentors, the customers and clients. You really get a chance to get to know some people, and it's very important. And that meaningful connection and potentially a reference later on is very important for your employability. And even in the context of starting your own business and becoming an entrepreneur, knowing people and having that group of early supporters, people behind you say, oh, I know who you are, and I believe in you, and I believe in your effort or the product that you're working on. It means a great world of difference there. You can build your professional portfolio this way, and ultimately you are able to identify, what are the services and products, or what is it that are the needs in the community. Often people have a lot of passion and they know what they have an idea for something. They say, oh, I can build this, or I can create this, or start this kind of business. But is it always in line with what people in the community are asking for or needing? And that's something that is not always fully understood. So with Volunteer MBC, when we get connected to organizations, you really get a chance to understand, oh, here's what people are struggling with day to day. Here's what people are paying attention to. Here's what people want, and gives you the opportunity to ask good questions and find out if those needs are being met. And if not, maybe then you can develop something that serves that need. So I'd like to throw a thought into the floor now. Again, give you an opportunity to share. If you had unlimited resources, right? If it was up to you to start your own initiative of a business of some kind, what would you do if it was right now that you could just do it? If you could snap your fingers and make it happen, what would be that type of business that you would begin? So feel free, if anybody wants to unmute themselves and comment, that's fine, or you can add a comment in the chat. We would love to hear your thoughts on this question. While you're thinking or typing, I'll comment on something we were discussing earlier around some of the passions we had in childhood, and where that can lead. So for myself, as both as a volunteer and eventually as sort of a part-time job, I'm a competitive Scrabble player. I play in tournaments and I organize events and have been for over 10 years now. But it started just as a hobby, and I got involved. I met some friends who also played Scrabble, and then I started to organize the local Scrabble club, and eventually started running tournaments and events like that. So there's definitely ways in which that can open doors for you. And so, as I said, it's partly was on a volunteer basis. And by doing that, I grew a lot of my networks. I met new people. Similarly, outside of Scrabble, I got involved with a friend who was running certain expos. That was his small business. He was running an expo, and he would do a number of them each year. And by helping out with that, I increased my network, and those are the experiences that led me into the work that I do now, which I'm very passionate about. So you don't know where the doors are going to open from, and you may not necessarily end up just doing the work that you think you want to do early on, but if you get a chance to experiment, if you get a chance to try, then those things can really lead you down a path of growth. Here in Canada, we don't necessarily need everyone to be doing just the jobs that are laid out yet. A lot of what they say is that in the future, people will be working in jobs that we don't know we need yet. So that's the catch of all of it. We're still kind of learning what are the needs in the community, and people's great ideas do make a difference. I do want to share some of the comments I'm seeing come through here. So just a second while I take a look here. So Ghazal says that you love embroidery, so you'd start a business on that. Okay, wonderful. Caitlin Cooper Parent says, I love volunteering for mental health and youth initiatives in the community. I'm an advocate for personal autonomy and growth. Yeah, definitely mental health and youth initiatives are in great need. Definitely the pandemic has exacerbated challenges with mental health in our community. And it's probably the case, I would say, that in the first part of the pandemic, the past year that we experienced, a lot of the effort from, let's say, from government or from any powers that be was focused a lot on emergency response, making sure people had food and shelter as much as possible. Now there's maybe a shift, I expect, toward more focus on the mental health impacts and the impact on youth of the pandemic. Certainly, if you take students and compromise their learning or make it really challenging for them to learn for a year and a half, depending on their age, that can have a very long-lasting impact. So, we definitely have to think about those things. Pravesh says, I 3D printed face shields and gave them in neighborhood during start of COVID. Oh, very cool. Okay. Tanya says, I would start a bakery where I would bring in people looking to build their skills and to move on. Oh, when I love that idea, Tanya, and I wonder if you're saying bring in people in terms of the employees. And I definitely think that there have been a few, not enough, but there have been some initiatives like that I've heard about, and I think it's a great idea. Okay, Safra has raised her hand. Safra, did you want to comment?
Absolutely. So I wanted to share something that I had a passion years ago and how that developed into me making income out of it. So I'm always about side hustles or something, but I'm really a humanitarian at heart. So years ago, I developed, started developing youth-based programs, just like mental health focus, etc. It caught the attention of someone in the sector that later they hired me under a volunteer basis to start learning how to write funds. And here's me not really knowing a lot, but understood what funds are out there. And then I ended up taking a little crash course on grant writing, which then turned into a passion of mine. So every year I get hired to do that. And throughout that experience, I now write grants for senior programs. So it took about 8-9 years to get where I'm at to actually get certain grants approved, but it literally started off with a passion to resolve a challenge in a program that led to me now really loving developing programs and analyzing them.
That's a great insight, Safra. And one of the things about nonprofit work is that there are many different organizations out there. And often, it starts like that. It starts with a good idea and being able to prove, have a proof of concept, say, oh yeah, this can be done, or understand what is logistically viable. And people are able to pursue funding for things, especially if their project is for a community cause. There are other types of funding that people can access as well if they have a small business, or if they are doing something in the sciences that maybe they have an idea for something that's scientific, or if you're an artist and you want to design some type of art installation, there are funds people can access for that. So I really feel that those types of supports are out there, and many people don't know that they exist, and think, well, if I have an idea or concept, I have to kind of fund everything alone, or kind of come up with my startup fees and everything. And that's not always the case. So I really appreciate that. Not only did you find your niche in terms of developing some programs or designing some programs, but also to start thinking about how do you get the resources around it, and really encourage that. And I see some great discussion here about Tanya's baking efforts. So great. Wonderful. And then Matthew said, I'd love to create day programming and athletic programming communities for people and families living with special needs. Okay, wonderful, Matthew. Yeah, definitely. That's something really important. One of the few things that we've been able to do more, depending on the sport, depending on the athletic activity, but definitely, getting outside, getting a chance to, whether it's cycling or shooting hoops, or there are a few things that we've been able to do during the pandemic that have been less inhibited than others. So, but not everybody has equal access to those things. So if we were able to, offer activities or operations that provide that for people, I think that would be something, wonderful for that. People are looking at Tanya's Facebook page. Okay, wonderful. I'm gonna keep moving. We'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to keep discussing a little bit of how each individual person's own passions and businesses are going if you're involved with something. We're gonna kind of shift gears and start to look at the mentorship piece here and try and then get some insight from our mentors. So if you could share a word in the chat that comes to your mind when you think of a mentor. So what does that word mean to you? And we've got this sort of a dictionary sort of definition on the right here: influence, guidance, or direction given by a trusted counselor or guide, sharing of knowledge gained from the mentor's experiences to support the learner with their goals. So mentor and mentorship. But what do you think of what comes to mind? So if you want to think of a specific word, or maybe there's a phrase or a memory that comes to mind, I would love to hear. So I see a psychologist, a shoulder to cry on. Okay, yeah, definitely. There's some support in that sense. I think one of the things that we've seen in some of our volunteer opportunities, Volunteer MBC, a couple of our member organizations are hospices, meaning they help people in end of life care, and families are go through very challenging periods at that time, of course. Not only the person who is the resident of the hospice, but their loved ones. And so by volunteering there, you can really develop your social emotional skills. You're sharing smiles, you're also sharing tears. So that's very powerful thought. And then support, for sure. I think mentors do that very much so. Purva says guru. Right. So someone who maybe have some leadership skills or show us, a good way to do things, could set an example. So excellent. Okay, so let's keep moving here. So I'm going to invite Matthew. And so Matthew Straiter, more than 15 years in print journalism, founded Straiter Edge Media in 2020. A university degree in journalism with a public relations minor from Thompson Rivers University and a history background from Dalhousie University. Okay, well, you've been busy, Matthew. So if you end up going back to study paleo biochemistry, then we'll add that to the list. Yeah. And through your experiences, you've developed your skills in quality communication, and that's where you're, working now in the print journalism. And you recognize the importance of providing quality communication at an affordable price to support nonprofit and small businesses. So Matthew, I'd like to invite you to share some of your insights with us, and we'll talk through, how, what entrepreneurship means to you as well.
All right. Thanks so much. I just want to first say thank you to Gazel and to you, Shan, again, and all the organizers and participants for listening to me. I hope I can add something to it. Being a year into starting my own small business, I just wanted to tell you a story. This is why I didn't put together a presentation with bullet points for you. I didn't feel I had the bullet points for you yet, but what I did have was a narrative about a person a year into their own small business, just celebrating my anniversary last month, and just how I've been able to find and to find some success and build the business in the past year, using planning that I thought of before I left my career. So I just wanted to begin by telling you a bit about myself, because my story of my university experience actually relates directly to my small business experience. So I'm an experienced Canadian. I was born in the West in Prince George, BC, but due to my father's RCMP employment, then retirement, then my parents' own kick at entrepreneurship for about 10 to 15 years, I actually moved around a ton in my youth. I didn't live in one town for more than a year. I've lived in almost every province and territory in this country. Once I started my own professional life, I worked most of my life in the print industry. I went to university for the first time completely without direction. So it wasn't a failing of my parents or anything, but because of moving around so much and the fact that I moved out of home at 15 because of the choices we made as a family, I didn't understand what I was getting into with university. So that first experience related a lot to what the experience was like starting a small business. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no end game. I had no goal with it. I had some interests that I was going to pursue. So that was how I ended up completing a history degree at Dalhousie University. I always loved writing. History involved writing. I didn't want to do book reports anymore. Off I went and completed a history degree. I didn't want to be a history teacher. I didn't want to be a researcher. So my second university experience is where I finally put desires together with my training. I entered my second university degree at 26. And I enrolled in English, figuring really ignorantly and naively that I would meet writers, I would meet publishers, I would network, and I would find some sort of writing degree because I wanted to be a writer, so that meant English, right? And this is where I was talking to Shan earlier about you really need to explore all of the ripples in the pond that you can explore with your skills. You may be surprised what you can supply to people. So when I entered that second degree and I entered that first English class and I was handed a copy of Midsummer Night's Dream and told we'd be reading, analyzing, and reporting on that play, I hit a really strange wall. Because of moving around, I had just coincidentally happened to read, analyze, and report Midsummer Night's Dream for the last 3 years of my life. And I started to think, is this the investment I want to make? Is this the money I want to spend? Is this going to serve me productively? And so I ended up being a young person trying to defend to people that I didn't need university. You could imagine how that sounded. So my problem now is I was a mature student and I failed in my mind. I had wasted money. I had achieved grades I knew that were less than I could in my first degree. And now in my second degree, I felt ready to conquer, but I had no direction. So I was ready to invest in myself. I felt like it was an investment in myself, but really I was just a fish out of water. I was going to pay $4,000 a semester to do something I had already done. So what I was doing was making investments, spending money, committing to goals with little to no actual research done on the direction or the ultimate goal. And this relates to exactly last year when I decided to start my small business, because 20 years later, I found myself doing the same things. And my recommendations today are going to be to actually avoid this and absorb it. If anyone can relate, it's the beginning of Dead Poets Society, and I realized that I would rip out half of that chapter and I would keep half of it. And that would be my business advice for you, is embrace the chaos and organize, organize, organize. So when I resigned from Torstar Metroland Media and decided to start my own business, my genesis was really frustration with my present job. There's hours of stories I could tell you about the media. They're not all bad. Fear of getting stuck in a rut. I just turned 40 and was in that, am I going to do this for the next 25 years place? And a small dash of opportunity and nativity. I had two friends with communications contracts forming. These pieces would only last 2 to 3 weeks, but I knew I could do them. They would pay well, and it was an opportunity to start. Now, I had some personal issues in my life as well. My wife was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. Now, she's beat that and been cleared from it, but this changes your perspective on what you're going to do for your life as well. So when I decided that I was going to start my own business, physically that isn't difficult. I'm going to share my contact information at the end of this, and if any of you need that practical advice, please feel free to call or email. I'll talk to you about, approaching Service Ontario, getting your business licenses, getting your HST numbers, the things that you need to get in place. It's not that difficult. It costs a few dollars. You register with the CRA, you have your HST number, your GST information, you're ready to charge people money. But really what I learned was how to not be that fish out of water, and I learned it quickly. I have a friend I went to journalism school with who started his own business 6 years ago, and he's that person in your life that you want to choke out in frustration because he lives life so successfully and without fear. he just bought an abandoned church in South Alberta and is converting it into a home, and hasn't held the same job for more than a couple years. In 20 or so years, having 5 or 6 successful businesses. He's just this guy, Mr. Capable. So he was the first person that I leaned on for advice and mentorship when I decided to start my small business. And all he kept asking me was, what do you sell? And in our first conversation, he was kind of aggressive about it. And it annoyed me at first. We had both been journalists in parts of our career. He knew what I was planning with the company, and I didn't have a product. I had a service. So I didn't think I needed a defined product. But the lesson that he taught me was, at the beginning, when you are that fish out of water, you need something to focus on. You need something to give you that tunnel vision, something to create, because you're going to have days without work. You're going to have days when you're marketing yourself. You're going to have days of that imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to sell? Am I good enough to charge for my services? And if you have something that you are focused on and working on, even if you're not selling it to a client yet, it can give you that sense of production every day. So although he was annoying me with this at first, I started to talk to him about it and started to refine that I needed to take the things that I had learned in my career that had inspired me to start this business and focus them into something I could create and market. So when I began Straiter Edge Media, I had those 2 contracts in hand. One was website content, as well as some media relations work. The other was being a go-between for a company between media. They had some legal issues going on and they wanted their communications cleaned up. Now, both went well and both went quickly. So then I sat back with my friend's question and went, so was I a communicator? Did I specialize in it? Was I selling my ability to get people in the papers? Was I going to build a career on just cleaning up people's emails and letters? So I sat back and I thought about it more and more. And I began to think for my own career what I knew. I wasn't a soap company. I just mean I wasn't going to develop some physical product to put on display. But from my years in the print industry, I realized that I knew 2 things the world wanted more of: targeted print productions and communications for small business. So in my first year, I have these pieces of advice for you. Create that targeted product or service. In other words, what you have, or in other words, you have your market in mind, who you will sell it to, and you can give you something to focus on. So in print production, in print media, I knew that targeted medias are where media is going. On a high level, that means the Golf Channel, the Food Network. Print media is not dying. That's a fallacy. Readership is going up every month. The crises that we have in our life, from the coronavirus pandemic to the Boston Marathon bombing a few years ago, and then the Boston Herald being the most visited website in the world for a couple of days, it shows that when things happen, people still go to the media and they still desire it. So I started to think about who our audiences were and what they were desiring. And I melded that with my volunteer opportunities. And this is where maybe I can give some direction to you today about how you could think in the same way and bring those 2 together. So when I started volunteering about 5 to 6 years ago, I started volunteering for when I started volunteering with Caledon Meals on Wheels. I've been volunteering my entire life. I joined the board, was on the board for a year, and developed the relationships with Caledon Meals on Wheels that I have today. My wife got sick and I had to step away from the volunteering. When I started this business, I knew that seniors were an audience for print productions. They were still the ones reading print productions actively and seeking them out, coming to the newspaper office, asking for editions. And then Caledon Meals on Wheels presented this communications contract because they had gotten 6 months of funding to increase their communications during the pandemic. I had thought of these seniors productions, seniors newspapers, print productions for seniors, entertainment vehicles, not hard news, not crime and politics, but once-a-month productions within communities targeted to the senior community. I knew seniors wanted their own production in communities. I know from being in print media, they will read it and seek it out. And I knew that this was the audience for this charity. So once I had started working on ideas for launching these productions, a week later, this advertisement for Communications for Caledon Meals on Wheels came out. So I had put together this idea for this product. I presented it to Caledon Meals on Wheels as a way to increase their communications, and boom, immediately the two things married themselves. So as you suffer for work, train yourself, or as you struggle to create work at the beginning of your business, these are the things that I can tell you, is refine for yourself what your skills are and what you can provide. Target that to a certain market, and even if you're doing that without a client and without pay at first, keep working on that. That's your niche. Find and then use that to find the audience for it and work away. Lean on experience. Speak with those who have had success and failure. I've seen from friends now who have ventured and made it or not, that there's a lot to relate between small business and professional sports. It's not always about talent and ability. Sometimes it's luck, opportunity, your choices. So talk to all of those people who have had success and failed. Each of them is going to be able to give you advice. I was right to be rigid with money at first. It's amazing with small business, you're going to find a number of opportunities where you can, from tax write-offs to relationships with local chambers, things like that. There's going to be opportunities for discounts and everything, but be rigid with your money and put a certain amount of what your business makes away, because that will give you your own contingency fund at the end of the year when you do your taxes and write-off. Talk to everyone who has done it, everyone who has tried it, everyone who is thinking of trying it. And I didn't know how practical we wanted to get, but there may be some things you're not going to know before you launch the small business that you need to get yourself ready for. Canada's healthcare system is not free. That is one thing I learned once I became self-employed. I lived for 15 years under a Torstar Metroland Union contract that provided my family with health and dental, and it was wonderful. I now pay up to $600 a month to provide my family with that. Making money as a business will require a whole new banking system with new products. I was that naive fool who walked into a bank with my first check for Straiter Edge Media and then couldn't actually cash it because I hadn't established business accounts. There's large differences between being a sole proprietorship and incorporating. These are things that seem obvious, but it's something I want to point out because I've had friends who had incorporated simply because they thought it would be cooler to have a professional business with INC dot at the end of it, and it resulted in huge problems for them. And form those relationships. Become a member of your local chamber, social media groups, forums. Again, just talk. Networking and relationships with other people has provided me with, I joke about the mentor being the psychologist and the shoulder to cry on, but honestly, that wasn't a joke. For me, being a person who was getting into providing people a service and not a direct product at first, the biggest thing to get over for starting a small business was that imposter system and the anxiety. And getting involved with groups, volunteering with groups so I could share my skills and meet people, getting involved with local business groups, talking with other people who had done it and leaning on other people who had done it was what got me through that initial fear and anxiety of, could I do this? And the other thing I found too is I wanted to share on volunteering. I don't want this to sound selfish, but ensure that if you are volunteering to aid your business. Now, I've been in many volunteer opportunities with boards and such over my years with the people who do just volunteer to put it on their resume, and you get that. So I don't mean this. I don't want to encourage volunteerism for selfish reasons, but if you're volunteering to build your business, ensure that you're volunteering with an opportunity where you can build your business. Now, if you're doing a volunteer opportunity, like say volunteer driving for Caledon Meals on Wheels, a wonderful thing contributing to your community, great. But the one thing I found that helped me was actually steering my volunteering opportunities toward my business as well. If you volunteer for a board and you put your hand up for the finance committee, but you're a marketer and you have good math skills, you're going to be productive for that board, but you may not be showing off what your business can do to the other board members, to the clients and members of that organization, and then to all the avenues that an organization may give you to show off your work, such as preparing materials for them, getting involved in fundraising events. So if you're a marketer, put your hand up for the marketing committee. Get involved in volunteer opportunities. It may cost you time and money at first, but get involved in volunteer opportunities where you can show off your abilities to others. And from volunteer networking, you're going to get much more productive networking than from business networking. I got a little off course on my presentation there, but that's the basis of what I have to share today. I thank everybody again for listening to me. And I'm going to share my contact information in the chats. If there's anything anyone ever wants to get in touch with me about, I'm absolutely open to speaking to anyone at any time.
Oh, this is really cute.
Thanks, Matthew. That was fantastic. I think you shared a number of really important points. I mean, I want to kind of loop back, ask you a couple questions about what you shared, a few things that stood out to me. So, you mentioned the importance of talking to people and networking. That was one of the key things that you kind of emphasized. So, what were some of the specific, were there specific people that in subsectors that you talked to that really gave you an advantage that you felt? What was a boost? Was it talking to people who were kind of doing similar initiatives, or was it more about people who showed you about specific skills or opportunities that were key for you? What were those?
Yeah, I got really lucky. I happen to have I have a group of close friends, of course, and I happen to have two of them who at the same time had just a watershed moment in their lives, a collection of things that happened that they also had to leave a career and start their own business. And those two happened to be forced. So I don't get to wear a giant badge of courage that, I was able to sort of quit a career and have the strength to start the small business myself. I got to watch and experience with two friends. I had a friend in the development industry who had to leave his development firm due to some family issues. And he was forced to start his own firm 2 years prior to me starting my own company. And then I had a friend who is in the advertising industry, and he started his own company much earlier than that. He's quite successful now, but I was able to walk through the entire process with them, which was quite an advantage for me. And a lot of people aren't going to have that. My friend who had to start his own company on the development side needed guidance and communication. So I got to get basically elbow deep with him on starting everything. So I got to do his website work, help him with his marketing, and see how that goes for a new small business. And then, of course, my friend who started an advertising company 5 or 6 years ago, one, lent work to me right away, which is an unbelievable advantage from networking. And two, he was able to guide me through the fear process. He has the cliche stories. He made $13,000 in his first year. He made $19,000 in his second year. He had craft dinner and beans for a year. And then, his business took off. And now he's a multi-million-dollar ad agency house. So I had that advantage. But the thing, too long a story to answer your question. But the thing that was a real advantage was they were both my age. They were both sort of the exact experience of not actually wanting to leave the career, like having that fear of leaving the benefits, the pension, the security, and starting their own business. And I got to live through them. So I saw that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The toughest thing for me, even though there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I saw it, and I knew it could be there. The first 6 months of starting my own business, I didn't sleep. You sweat all the time. You suffer from imposter syndrome. Really, I'm going to be an expert for people on things. It is the most difficult part to get through, or at least it was for me. Personality wise, it may be different for somebody else. Having those two people that were friends as well as mentors, so I could do the shoulder to cry on thing. I could call them at 9:15 on a Friday morning and simply go, holy crap, what did I do? And just get that talk from them. No, I made 13 grand in my first year. I had to sell a car to pay bills for 3 months and then take a bus for 3 months. I had hearing the sacrifice stories leading to the success stories. There was no greater support for me than that. There are tons of supports in this country for physically starting a small business. Once you lean on your local chambers, once you talk to people who have done it, once you get the advice, you'll find avenues for little grants, for little tax write-offs, for things that will help you with the financial things, the business things that you think are going to be the most daunting. For me, the most daunting was the mental part. The day after I resigned from Torstar Metroland was like taking a backpack off my back. It was, because I was feeling so much stress from the crime and politics of print media life. The day after that, I put a 10 times heavier backpack on my back because I am a 40-year-old man with children and a family to support. And this isn't a misogynistic world anymore. I'm not the only earner in this house, but those feelings, that was the most difficult thing to get over. And that was what I needed mentorship and support for.
Well, that's fantastic insight. I want to invite that anybody else who has any questions for you can feel free to share them in the chat. I mean, I'll keep talking to you while people think of if they have a question to ask. But another thing you mentioned that struck me was around the volunteering, and as a volunteer center, we are often very like acutely aware of the reasons why people want to volunteer, and more people want to volunteer. And yes, they care about the community, and there's causes they're passionate about, and there's an element of altruism in that. But more and more, there's also people are facing a lot of time poverty, and they have to choose how they're going to use their time effectively. And so they need to also be able to benefit from their volunteering as a pathway to get to somewhere they want to be, whether that's thinking about stepping stones from one volunteer position to their next volunteer position, or from thinking about it from the lens that we're talking about today around employability and employment and entrepreneurialism, or from any other perspective. So I definitely hear you when you talk about thinking a little bit about what would be in it for you in the right position, in the volunteer position. So
yes, thank you for saying that. I didn't want to at all impress the message of like, oh, this won't help my business, so I'm not going to do this beneficial thing for my community. I didn't want to impress upon that at all. I just wanted to impress that I've seen so many quality volunteer opportunities lead to productive connections. I was on a board 10 years ago for a mental health home, and the 3 people who were our finance committee now own an accounting firm together. It's such a great way to build relationships, show off your skills, meet people that you want to work with, that you want to take on other projects and initiatives with. You may just do other volunteer opportunities together, but the relationships you build from doing these community projects, from doing these heartwarming things together, it's friendships that you don't get in normal circumstances. It's work relationships that you don't get in normal circumstances.
absolutely,
I encourage it fully.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that people can be, let's say, fans of the same sports team and might become friends over that, or they share something in common. But but definitely relationships that are built around volunteering, where people are passionate about something, cause that they are devoted toward, definitely leads to some meaningful connections that often end up being lifelong connections, because you kind of have something in your heart that connects you to that person even after you've maybe stopped serving in that volunteer position. You know that, oh, that person that I volunteered with, we were involved in something really important for the community. So I think that's something special also. Matthew, just one more question just about your insights here today. What would you say to somebody who's right now sitting behind the screen here thinking to themselves, okay, I do have a thought about becoming an entrepreneur. I am trying to weigh the decision of how to get started, and what might be the first step that you would recommend somebody take if they were like, if you had to pick one of your recommendations or anything else that you think is like the one thing that they should start off by doing, where would you suggest that they get started?
It sounds so cliche and typical, but speaking with someone who's had the experience, it's invaluable, and not just one. And this was where I stress, and I'll stress again, people who have failed and succeeded. Get as much information as you can on the experience. Get as much, emotion, frustration, success stories. Get as much of it as you can to get yourself ready.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for your insights. I'm gonna switch gears and get into our next discussion, but you'll still be here, Matthew, for our session, right? So yeah. We'll definitely touch base with you again. So now I'd like to invite Roxandra Solian to the floor. Roxandra has over a decade of experience in public relations, communications, and marketing. She owns Dama PR Consultancy and is the co-owner of Damarino. She created the pandemic-born easing Sa Romania. I think I butchered the pronunciation there. You're going to teach me some Romanian, Roxandra, featuring inspiring Romanian Canadian immigrant stories. Roxandra has been a passionate, lifelong volunteer who is always getting involved in a diverse range of initiatives close to her heart, and volunteering for Volunteer MBC at one point. From human and animal rights movements, the arts, and multicultural festivals. It's through these collaborations she has experienced some of her best personal and professional encounters of her life. Roxandra, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I'm gonna switch the floor here, so you can screen share. Or you have your
yes
slide deck you'd like to bring up, sure. I want to preface this by saying Roxandra's expertise, we leverage it every day at Volunteer MBC on our media team as well. So thanks, Roxandra. Looking forward to hearing a little bit more about you and learning about things about you that I don't already know. A little bit about your vast experience in entrepreneurialism.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for joining our workshop today. I'm very, very excited about this. It's the first time I've ever really spoken about my business in a formal setting like this. So bear with me, a bit of emotion, but we'll cool that down as we move on. So my name is Roxandra Maria Solin, as Sean mentioned. I'm a PR, communications and marketing professional specialized in strategic planning, media relations, digital marketing, influencer and social programs, event design and promotion. I own and manage a few small businesses. Dama PR is a consultancy that operates as a sole proprietorship. Then with my husband, I co-own the incorporated building and renovations business called Damarino. The name of Dama comes from Daci and Maria. Damarino came first in 2007. I will tell you more about it later. I have a funny story to share about how it was born. I also created this pandemic-born easing Ca Românii. It's a word game. it means just like the Romanians, and also the Ka, which of course is a reference to being a Canadian. And yes, it is dedicated to the Romanian Canadian community. We have a volunteer editorial team of collaborators as well. And we find and write the most inspiring immigrant stories we can find in our small but vibrant community. We are a very, very proud community, and wherever you meet a Romanian, you will definitely know about it. I also am a prize-winning folk singer and songwriter on hiatus, I must mention. And invited by a Toronto producer, I recorded and launched in 2009 the Soul in Jazz Blues Bossa album at the Old Mill Inn. But you know, the past few years developments have kept me away from performing on stage. But I know the right time to do it again for the fans and friends will come sooner or later. There's a time for everything. When I was young, in university and in high school, I was very, very active. Back home in Romania, I was on national television and featured at many festivals. Here in Canada, I did perform a lot as well. But of course, the pandemic put everything on halt, and that happened in my music world too. But it's all good. Sometimes we need to take a break from certain things and take care of the main priorities. Since my teens, I've probably helped a lot of female entrepreneurs and supported the now global SheEO movement as an activator. I'm happy to share more about it. It's an absolutely fantastic movement that is growing by the day. So when it was just starting to bloom here in Canada, I joined as an activator there, helping extraordinarily inspiring ventures to get funded and supported in every possible way. I do love volunteering for environmental, anti-cancer, and access to education efforts, for art and multicultural festivals, food drives, civic, human, and animal rights movements, a lot of stuff. The most active these days I am with Volunteer MBC. I'm very proud of that. Everybody who knows me knows I volunteer for Volunteer MBC, working closely with Sean and with Maduri. They are just wonderful, wonderful people, and the leader, Corinne Strong, and everybody else on the team are just wonderful people who really help in so many ways. Everybody who joins the volunteer team. So I strongly encourage you guys to consider that. All the best work I've done, yes, paid or pro bono, came from volunteering collaborations. And as Sean mentioned, through volunteering with Volunteer MBC, the past two V-Oscars editions happened as a collaboration as a result. And I was so excited. It helped me grow so much as a professional, as a person too, I like to think. And I encourage you to check it out on the YouTube channel of Volunteer MBC or on their website to see the fruit of our labor. Okay, I will give you advice towards the end of the presentation, as anyone would expect, but I thought that sharing the actual journey of how Dama Renault, Dama PR, and Caro Money came to be, hoping that while listening to this story, you can find yourselves in there and pick the very tips that might help you at some point. So apologies if you consider that I'm stressing too much on talking about my own businesses. It's not for marketing purposes. It's simply because I think the journeys that we took, my husband and I, to come to where we are authentic immigrant stories of success. And I truly, truly hope they will be of great help to you in your vision following. Okay, so my first paying job as an adult was as an ESL school teacher and class mentor 2 decades ago. I can't believe I'm saying this 20 years ago. Yes, I was a teacher for 5 years, something that I'm extremely proud of. My former students make me even prouder back in Romania and abroad now, that as adults, as professionals, as family, you know, people. And those 5 years really sucked up all my energy. I felt like I grew 10 years older, but my heart will always be there, and I'll always be a teacher, even if I left that career back, because that was my first. And this answers the question that Sean posed at the beginning of the presentation. What did you dream of being when you were young? At some point, very, very young, I dreamt of being an actress, but I left that behind. I'm inspired by my best teachers. I really wanted to become a teacher myself, and that dream was fulfilled, but then new opportunities came. One great job opportunity to promote express publishing educational materials to the foreign language teachers across Romania. Absolutely exceptional books and interactive sets approved and purchased for them by the Ministry of Education, opened the door to PR. So I took a break. I took a break. I took a breath, and I stepped in and closed the door behind me. I never looked back to going back to teaching. Here in Canada, while getting my Ryerson PR certification, I volunteered with the Canadian PR Society for a couple of years, which led to finding my first paid job as a subcontractor for a startup PR agency. And yeah, it was a blur. They, you know, you are considered an employee, but I was really working as a contractor for them. And in all that blur, at some point, the sun shines a bit better, and word of mouth and constant networking through volunteering brought me other clients on the side. So in time, I felt more confident as a small business owner than seeing myself as an employee. What I didn't, you know, put in my notes. Sorry, I got a bit emotional here, talking about my teaching years. My very, very first job in Canada, official, was as an admin assistant at the YMC Employment and Newcomer Services. And after a year and a half, the team was restructured a lot, and among many other people, I was also let go. It was a big shock to me because I was expecting a promotion, to be honest. But life throws some stuff of that sort at us too, to help us wake up and look better at the real work that expects us along the way. And one thing that I realized was that, yes, having good relationship with everybody there, and you know, a fantastic team. One thing I noticed was that you need to fit in all the time. They didn't quite like exceptional work. Like they only expected you a certain. Of course, you have to fit within a certain frame. And I don't know, maybe it's my East European roots or personality, the family I come from. It's just I felt along the years that I just can't find myself fitting in as an employee in a corporation necessarily. So at some point, you get to make peace with that and realize that our mission can be fulfilled by just building our own path. So that's what happened with me. And the PR world is a shark tank, but there are opportunities for sharks, big and small. it's all about how big you want to grow and be in a happy place personally as well. Because the stress of immigrating is big enough, and then also considering what your other family members' dreams are, you have to work together on that and decide what the priorities are as a family. Now the Damareno journey, our renovation business, I know this is a pretentious word some people may hate, but it's the best one to describe how the Damareno business started and grew. And the word is serendipity. Now, 15 years ago in October, sorry, let me drink some water. My husband and I immigrated to Canada. My husband Dacian was turning 30 as we flew to Toronto, and we changed planes in Vienna. The plan had been to come a few days earlier. We had wanted it so much, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen, and we were so frustrated with the fact that we had to delay our flight until that Wednesday, only to find out that destiny wanted us to be there. We met this old lady who instantly fell in love with my husband, who couldn't speak English. He knew English, but he wasn't at the level of eliciting it. She just wanted to talk to him, but couldn't. So they needed me to sit in between and translate. So that's what happened for the 8 hours to Toronto. And we had a great party there. She found out he was turning 30. Just had everybody on the plane sing happy birthday to him. It was just like unbelievable. We were in awe with this woman. To find out that she was also an immigrant to Canada. She had been here for many decades with her family, a family who had been very rich and influential in Europe, and then lost everything to the war. They were chased by the Nazis. They ran to Israel, and from there, through the forests and mountains of Italy, at some point, eventually they made it to Canada, and the whole family had great success here. So at the airport, we said our goodbyes, and by the time we went to pick up our luggage, she said that she wanted to be our Canadian grandmother. And we stayed in touch with her. And she told us that she wanted to be the first person who ever gives us a job in Canada. The best thing she could offer was doing her garden. And yeah, we just went and cleaned her garden. It was October, so the leaves were falling. There was a lot of stuff to do. She was very happy with it. And she told her sister, listen, I found this couple. I know you're a very pretentious woman. Nobody satisfies you when they come to do your garden. How about you try with these people? So she accepted, we did. And so Vera, her senior sister, let us go there in Markham, and she was so happy with the result. She started inviting her neighbors to see her garden, and she told everybody, these Romanian kids are here. He's an engineer, she's a former teacher, and look at them, they came and did my garden. I'm finally happy. And I swear to God, I'm not exaggerating. It really happened like this. She was a 20-year-old widow and lived very well. So she was very picky with everything you did around her. And through this interaction set or series, one of her neighbors told Vera that her son-in-law owns a drywall company, and he always looks for new people to work for him. And I made a call to the man, and in 2 days, Dacian started his work as a scraper in a drywall company. But what also happened is that these two sisters introduced us to, and you see here in the screen, this old gentleman who looks quite rough because we call him a diamond in the rough. They introduced us to their brother, who is the owner of Fisher Environmental. And on the side of his engineering business, he liked for a long time to buy properties and renovate and sell them. And he had just bought from a bank a property with cash, a property that had been flooded, this almost completely destroyed on the inside. The people had run away with the insurance, and he was desperately looking for someone to help him clean it up and renovate. He brought his team to take out the biggest items, and we had just arrived in Canada. And as soon as we met him, we shook hands and started working for him. So for the first 8 months in Canada, we had our day jobs. I was working at the YMCA, Dacian was working at this drywall company, and in the evening and every Saturday and Sunday for 8 months, we had no idea what a weekend was. We worked, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. I was preparing hot food and cold food for my husband. He took it in 2 different coolers, and we only met late in the evening, but we made it. And within a year, we ended up incorporating Damareno because Dacian, who is an engineer, but also a fantastically talented renovator and builder, was recommended by David Fisher. And word of mouth has been the advertising channel for this business ever since. I never had to advertise this. If there's a website, it's because any new client would like to, find out more about us. So here's a platform for them to read about us. But thank God, it's the quality that spoke for itself. And obviously, everybody will recommend you as business owners to give the best you got, and sometimes keep your head down, because I worked for free. The first house that were renovated there, I worked for free. I was cleaning up after everybody. My husband got paid a symbolic amount. We thought it's a lot of money, but in time, David Fisher learned to know us better, to respect us and to appreciate us. And at this point, we are like family. We've been, and he became my husband's mentor. He really taught my husband the ropes of running a business here in Canada. But he's not your conventional type of guy. Sometimes we may look at our heroes and imagine that they may be impeccably dressed people or just super tidy. He's not, but his knowledge, his business acumen, he worked for Shell for 25 years, and all the sufferings his family went through, we sat and listened and learned and sat next to him on any given occasion and learned everything we could to make this life in Canada work, because there was no going back to Romania. Our dreams were all set here in every pocket of our suitcases. All right. And then the Caro Money magazine, it's when I was in high school, I co-created this students only magazine at our collegiate, and we won the 3rd national prize for it. Sanda Farkas here at the bottom was my pen name. And ever since, I had dreamt of creating a publication here in Canada too. And the opportunity came, or I don't know, just the energies, the stars aligned, I guess. And this magazine was born in the pandemic. The first edition came out last March, and we've been receiving great feedback from the community. They really feel great about it. So everybody who contributes gets to promote his business, her business in the magazine, and we have great following. And to me personally, it's a channel to do writing therapy. I love writing. I think it's my most comfortable way of expressing myself, and taking advantage of this to do it and connect with my people as well, and also help them integrate in Canada. Many of them might have difficulty finding their way here. So if this inspires anyone there, so much the better. I'm happy that the mission is complete. Okay, now, yes, I have a few tips and suggestions. Of course, I have a million things to share with you. I will give you my contact details at the end, and we can always connect. And if I can help you guys reach your stars in any way, I will be happy to, because I was helped in my time. It's so important to find the help in the incipient form of your business. I keep saying, if you don't help someone when they really need it, especially in the beginning of their new journey, don't come when they're doing well, because it's a bit too late. It's just for different reasons, obviously. So before you take the big step, make sure you give yourself the time to weigh the pros and cons of opening a business, obviously. Sorry, I might be stating the obvious a lot of times. It's one of the things that I do, but I guess we need reminding from time to time, and especially in a phase like this, when you are thinking of opening your business, but with everything that's going on around us, you may have your doubts. Among the pros are, of course, the fact that you choose your schedule. If you work full or part-time, you choose your clients, you choose your team, you are your own boss, and so on. But you're running the show, as our friend David Fisher says. But also, it's very important to think of the cons, the extra energy that is consumed to run your own business. Even studies have shown that business owners are exposed to double the stress of just mere employees. And if very successful in a short time, which can also happen, make sure that you are ready for that kind of speedy adjustment, because it is the era of technology which enhances our talents, exposes us to the world, and brings in overnight success to a lot of people. Not that I, necessarily recommend that kind of thing, because not everyone is ready for overnight success, and it's not always the healthy scenario. But if that ever happens, you gotta be ready for it. It is a big decision. Give it time and make peace with yourself and those closest to you, that once you've started this new journey, you can sleep well at night. You will sleep tired but happy. Tired because you have work to do and you have people paying and appreciating your quality of work, but happy that you have found your place professionally. Now, before you make that step, of course, it's good to make a serious evaluation. Consult your inner best friend and critic. As I said, family, closest allies, to make sure you and them are ready for it. In 2009, after I left YMCA, I didn't know which way to go. I was still kind of considering teaching, but I wasn't sure. The signs of Ontario teachers suffering were already showing, and I was inspired enough, I guess, and lucky to find a nonprofit organization that gave this 1 week training, I guess we can call it, but it's self-evaluation and testing process where you can find your, like, really clear the air and know your best skills, your best talents, your intellectual, emotional, personal features that will eventually peek into finding out what the best type of career would be for you. And even as an entrepreneur, of course. I did that and it really, really helped me because eventually the results came that I could be a good teacher or a PR professional. I was thinking, okay, but I kind of knew that, but then I thought, I don't think I am ready to become a teacher here in America. My teaching style from back home might not be the same here. You know, you think of all the pros and cons again. So I went to Ryerson and did my certification there on top of the English bachelor's degree that I came with from Romania. So yes, I strongly encourage you to do that. I assume this is new to me. This organization WCG is new to me, but I'm pretty sure that they can give you some avenues, or maybe they have an in-house team that can do that, like really help you test yourself and go through like even math tests and personality tests and get to know yourself well enough to be sure that this is who I am, what I'm really good at, and what I really, really like to do for a living and eventually make money of. So good luck with that. I'm sure that I keep saying this is Canada. You can find anything here, and I'm sure that there are ways for you to find those kinds of professionals to guide you. Okay, I have one. Obviously, another huge requirement, which Matthew already mentioned. Sorry if I'm going over time, please pull me by the sleeve. The discipline and the confidence of running your own business are key. Without discipline, without exercising these two, there's nothing. It just falls apart. And like Matthew said, at times it feels like it's never gonna work, or like it's too hard to follow your dream of doing this. But it takes time. It takes time and exercise and persistence. It's just, and I encourage everyone to eat healthy, sleep well, and take care of themselves, so that the machine keeps going on rainy days as well. And educate yourselves at all times. When I came to Canada, I knew nothing about bookkeeping, about accounting, about submitting my taxes. The school I worked for did it for me, and then my first employer when I did the PR. And coming here, opening a business, incorporating it less than a year after coming, pushed us to uncharted territories and just forced me into going to learn how to do our taxes, because when we got some help from a friend, once we started using an actual accountant, we found out that the help we had got was wrong. So make sure you find trusted professionals that can help you with that. And I attended a gazillion workshops from Bees Lounge, owned by Andrew Patricio, a fantastic man from South Africa, who has been doing this small business mentoring for over 25 years. And that really helped. You know, it was in 2000, 2006, 2007. So there were like the social media wasn't as strong as it is now. And those helped. We went to staple stores. If you remember the Office Depot, he was sponsored to do that and took notes. I think I still have them. And they really, really helped. So whenever you find a true professional, like Matthew mentioned, talk, and find the people that you trust and have the knowledge and the goodwill of guiding you properly. Because every step you take, especially in the beginning of your business, is so important to consolidate your foundation. So you need good advice for that. All right. And of course, if possible, if there's a professional association, join it. Networking with your peers is, oh my goodness, it's so important. It helped me tremendously. I volunteered with the Canadian PR Society. I volunteered with the International Association of Business Communicators, and it helped every time. It helped me find my tribe and stay up to date with the new trends in the industry. It's a no-brainer, to be honest. Yes, and something that I didn't mention, but you can see it on the screen. Always learn to ask the right questions before you open the business. Like if you want to know if it's best for it to be an incorporated business or a sole proprietorship. You know, if you want to be the only business manager and owner, or if you have such a good friend that you feel comfortable partnering with them, and of course, if you are ready to employ people or to have them as subcontractors, all of these questions are good to be answered before you dive into it.
Rooks, I got a minute for you.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'm almost finished. In terms of mentorship, as I mentioned, Mr. Fisher was our greatest mentor in terms of our Canadian entrepreneurship, my parents both worked in a tractor factory most of their lives, doing laboratory and quality control work, and had little to no business acumen. My father was a fantastically talented actor, but only learned to sell his masterpieces at their true value in the few years before dying of cancer, while his 3 children were gone away to study university. So while preparing for this presentation, I gave it a lot of thought and realized that my real mentor as an entrepreneur has been my husband, who grew in a family who owned a pig and cattle farm, a bakery, a bar, and that helped him run. He helped run those businesses until he went away to university. All his siblings are business owners as well. So honestly, without his encouragement and support, I would have probably given up this business owning path quite a while ago in my PR career, as the initial phases of owning a business aren't always pretty, especially in the PR world. His own mentor here in Canada helped him quickly learn the ropes of running a business on his new continent, gain his first new clients, and boost his English speaking confidence beyond recognition. His English is not perfect even to this day. He creates his own English version, but he's fluent in it. He's confident, and whenever he talks about his work, he is he just flows, and I'm so proud of him. He's blooming. So growing in the shadow of these 2 men, I have not only learned their business management skills, but I went on to create my own system that works smoothly for these 3 businesses I presented to you at once 15 years later. And as far as volunteering goes, I could talk about it all day and not be finished still. Every single volunteer job I took has improved my skill set as a business owner, no question about it. But the part I got to work with the best part is I got to work with some of the most phenomenal and inspiring people I had ever met, Sean included. Just a few examples: TD Toronto Jazz Festival and Kara Saga. They helped me with media relations, team management, very helpful later on when I ended up training and managing new agency recruits and the very volunteers of the festival. Then World Vision, Brands for Canada, which was formerly known as Windfall. We did fundraising events. We did Wear White for Windfall, very, very popular on media, in the media at the time. Golf tournaments, bridal sales. And my tech side, my award gala and virtual event design, which I probably love most, besides media relations, it came from volunteering with Volunteer MBC, Social Media Week, Elevate Tech Fest, SheEO, Women of Influence, IABC Toronto, Canadian PR Society, and other organizations. On a personal level, I've always wanted to be a driver for Meals on Wheels. I do that simply to, you know, to fulfill my person as simply a human being, not necessarily as a professional, maybe a professional driver, but every time I go, it's so rewarding. The people I deliver food to are so lovely and grateful and appreciative. And it's through that team that I got my vaccines in January and February. And that was a reward in itself, obviously, that I hadn't even expected. I'm happy to share more. As I said, if you guys want to contact me, you can find me everywhere on LinkedIn, on YouTube, Dama PR, and Ruxandra, my music channel, on Instagram. I have both Dama PR and Ruxandra on Twitter and on Facebook as well. You have my email there. I wish you guys good health, best of luck. That speck of luck that also Matthew mentioned is so important, because hard work without a bit of luck just doesn't pay off completely. And stay in touch.
Thank you, Alexandra. That was excellent. Love the passion, and you covered so many things. I want to be able to unpack some of that. I think if I ask just you one question, since we're a little bit short on time, and I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions in the chat. Yeah, okay. So, you know, out of all the things that you did in your three businesses, and you know, you mentioned all that kind of experience leading up to it, what was one of the biggest challenge that you faced, like as an entrepreneur? Like what was something that you came across that really gave you a hard time, and maybe how did you deal with it?
Top of mind and probably true, my financial literacy. I am a pretty disciplined person in general, but as an immigrant, it was hard for me to learn all the requirements to know how to, from opening your own bank account, because back in Romania when we left, at least 15 years ago, you only spent the money that you had, the cash that you had. We had no credit cards. And it was the next day after we arrived that Dacian's cousin took us to a TD Bank. And that is when we first opened a bank account. From there to, you know, opening your business account, applying for visas, applying for a mortgage, and learning to prepare your documents, your bookkeeping. That, I think, was the hardest part. I remember one Christmas was full of tears, and we actually had such a big fight. I was so stressed out because my paperwork wasn't ready for the accountant, and I was freaking out. It just, you know, I snapped, and I ended up taking the Christmas tree out. Like, I'm throwing away the Christmas tree. This is not a holiday anymore. And we brought it back, cooled down. But that really got to me. Learning, finding the right people to teach me, and the people to trust, finding an accountant that actually respects my work and my family's work, so that we grow together doing this, took a lot of time. And so I strongly encourage you guys, again, like Matthew said, keep your money in order, keep your finances under control, and learn the things that you can deduct as a business owner, because you will spend a lot of money before you make a lot of money. And most of that money will probably be borrowed. We came with $5,000 borrowed when we came to Canada, and we thought we had a lot of money. That went away in a couple of months, and we just couldn't find a rent. Nobody wanted us. So yes, it's the financial literacy that was the biggest challenge. I think now I have mastered that. I do all the office management of Damareno, and actually I'm just about to meet
a couple of comments here. Matthew says that his wife made him return Christmas gifts on Boxing Day one year because she was so worried about money.
Oh.
And Purvesh asks, have you ever been in a situation, Ruxandra, where there was low or no income in the business, and how did you deal with it?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, absolutely. Not in the renovation business, but in my PR world, because I was just starting to cut my teeth as an entrepreneur. And had it not been for my husband, I would have just given up. Like, there was no, when I left the agency after 5 years of work, I had been their first team member. And I helped them grow into a team of 15 people. I was exhausted, got pneumonia. I was a mess, an absolute mess. And I just had to let it go. And it took me a long while to find new clients after that, because we worked with a lot of fantastic brands there. I had a fantastic portfolio, but going solo was really, really hard for me. And I was on the verge of depression, if not really depressed. I could say that my mental health was at risk at the time. But keeping the people who really care for you and help you when you need, with what you need, is so important. So make sure you keep those relationships alive for times like that. So yes, we have been there. And especially in the first few months in Canada, we came in October. By the end of the year, we had $0 in our bank accounts. We were waiting for our salary to finally come in. But yes, there were times when we had zero money, and it's not easy. But there are better days awaiting.
Thank you, Ruxandra, and both Ruxandra Saline and Matthew Straiter. Thank you both for your expertise, and also sharing these vulnerabilities of what it is, the hardship as well. Because I don't think it's one thing to come in and talk about becoming an entrepreneur and making it potentially sound glitzy and hey, you're on your boss, so everything is roses. But I think the sharing how the challenges as well, and the time that it takes, and so many avenues, I think is really valuable. So I want to thank you both. We don't have time to cover everything else that we were going to talk about today. So I will kind of come back to this on another occasion, and we'll be able to spin this out. I mean, I think what we covered was so valuable, so I don't feel bad about leaving it out. But I will put a small plug in for our Board Essentials course. We're doing a program called Boardwalk. And it's going to give people an opportunity to volunteer and learn how to serve on boards and committees, to make our committees more diverse and reflective of our community here in Peel Region. It involves some experiential learning. It involves a learning course online that you can take. And we're inviting people to sign up. So, there's going to be some communication about that going out soon. But if you visit if you send an email to training@volunteermbc.org, we can be sure to keep you in the loop on that. I think both Ruxandra and Matthew mentioned the value of volunteering, and and the value of talking to people and networking and so forth. So this is a great avenue to do just that with people who are coming from different backgrounds and different experience levels and coming at it. So I definitely have you take a look at that. And of course, get connected to Volunteer MBC and WCG Services. If you come to volunteerbc.org and create your volunteer profile, as I kind of suggested, we'll happily kind of figure out where you are in your volunteer journey and get you into some opportunities that are best suited for you. And through WCG Services, you can definitely get some support with your employment search. So thank you all for attending today. Ghazal, did you want to add any final thoughts?
That was great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed. I'm sure that others enjoyed as well. And I'm really happy that I recorded this session. So thank you so much, Sean, Roxanne, Matthew, and I look forward to have more meetings with you.
Wonderful. So everybody, wish you a great balance of your afternoon and long weekend. And August, the one's called Civic Holiday is now Emancipation Day. So please, use that time to reflect on the history of slavery in Canada and what we can do to make sure human rights are advanced. So I wish you well and thank you all.
Thank you. All the best, guys.
Thank you. So everybody,
Thank you.
if you're still in the meeting, everyone, just as a quick thing, I would like to share the feedback form of this session. It takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and I would be thankful if you just go through the questions and submit your answers. Thank you so much.
Will do.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matthew.
Hey,
Thanks.
have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend. Bye.
Bye, guys.